Hey, Dan Passarelli here. Happy Halloween and happy Friday. Wrapped up another month in the markets. And, well, the overall market made some money in October, which is nice. September is actually the weakest month for stocks historically, although September was good too. October is typically not a terrible month, but it is the month when crashes tend to happen. And we made it through both of those puppies. So pretty darn good. S&P 500 today closed up 0.3% with the SPY closing at 682.06. The market was up this little smidge, just simply on news of the relations with U.S. and China seemingly being, okay, not so bad. Could have been worse, but especially some of the earnings that we had, notably Amazon, with just crazy, crazy demand. Oh my goodness, that stock was up 9.5%. Goodness gracious, what could possibly stop this market? Well, there's always something, isn't there? Now, one thing that I kind of find like a potential catalyst is this whole thing with the shutdown and with Snap being cut off as of, I guess, tomorrow. And I want to talk about my thoughts on how that could affect the market. Now, that could sound callous, but one thing, those of you who watch our videos every day, the videos that I put out every day, it's intended to help you understand the market and trade better. Politically, I don't ever get involved in that business because you don't care what I think, and I've got no business talking about that in these videos. So I do care about issues that affect society that I think are important, but that stuff is not what we talk about, not what I'm going to talk about right now. I want to talk very matter-of-factly about how this could affect the market. So there are 42 million Americans that rely on Snap, which is 1 out of 8 people. I did not know that until today. I was pretty surprised by that, to tell you the truth. So that means that these individuals are not going to have either any income or at least not as much income as they had. Now, the presumption is that most of these people are not independently wealthy. And so there's this thing where when wealthy people get more money, they don't really necessarily spend a whole lot more money. Because, they have the stuff they need, whatever the reason is. Just there's been lots of studies by economists that show that every dollar that the rich get, they don't spend $1.50 or anything. They just spend a little bit more, maybe, if anything. Poor people, and I'm lumping this into very broad categories, when they get extra income, they spend a much, much higher percent of it. To a degree, that can work the other way, too. So when these SNAP benefits are being cut on 1 out of every 8 people, they're not going to have that income. And so they're going to spend less, right? Now, if it's discretionary income, they would have to cut back on the discretionary income. That just logically follows. If they don't have discretionary income and they just don't have any income, then they just don't have any money to spend. So it seems to me that since it's 1 out of every 8 people, and probably a better way to measure this economically is to look at the dollar amount, but I don't have those figures in front of me. And we could make a pretty good estimate by how many fewer dollars are going to be spent versus how many dollars are typically spent. That would give us a pretty good idea on exactly how much less demand that we would expect. Now, as far as exactly which industries go, consumer discretionary is very, very likely to get hit. Retail is probably pretty likely to get hit. You would think that some of the things like healthcare and food is less likely to get hit. because that's stuff that everybody needs to figure out a way to pay for. I think if Snap ends up getting cut off tomorrow, and if it's just a couple of days, as far as the market goes, it might not really matter that much. But if we go into a week or two, again, just purely talking markets here, that can really, really start affecting demand. And for the folks who've been worrying about whether there's a potential for a recession, well, that would be a scale tipper, the way I see it. So that's something that we have to factor in, and we'll get a better idea as to what's going to happen by Monday. But I wouldn't be surprised that if Snap does get cut off and it stays cut off by Monday morning, I would be surprised if we don't see a pullback if that's how it plays out. But if somehow or another it doesn't get cut off, then it shouldn't probably affect the markets. Maybe that would give it a little bit of an extra boost just because, there's a little bit more happiness in the market, which strangely, even though the market should be just numbers, that does kind of affect it. And that's all my thoughts for today. So I hope that helps. This is Dan Passarelli. Have a great weekend and a happy Halloween. Trade smart.